G'day and welcome to the Hunting Connection podcast. My name is Zach Williams and I am your host. Here we'll connect you with hunters, fishers and outdoor enthusiasts from around the globe. This podcast will share hunting and fishing stories including past experiences and tackle the tough hunting stereotypes our community faces. We hope to be a positive influence to those outside the community while also having a laugh along the way. Hope you enjoy the podcast. G'day and welcome to another episode of Hunting Connection podcast. Firstly, I'd just apologise if my voice goes a bit funny throughout. There's been that type of weather where it's been hot, cold, and my voice has gone all funny. But tonight's guest, we've got Josh Wood, aka Coach Josh from Strong for Life Online Coaching. How you going, mate?
Hey, thanks for having me.
No, it's been something that's been in the cards for a while. I reckon I asked you, probably close to a year ago, if you're keen to come on after we were chatting about all the potential South Australian bow hunting ban.
Yeah.
Which you've been an amazing support for, even though you're not in South Australia. So for people that don't know who you are and where you're from, mate?
Oh, where am I from or where am I living?
Both. Cover both of it.
Oh boy, you could probably tell from my accent that I'm not native to Australia.
I
live in Hobart. I live in Hobart now. I've been in Australia since 2008. Lived in Queensland and Victoria mostly. Where am I from? I'm from the Midwest in the United States. I grew up, spent my first 12 years in Nebraska and then another few years in Minnesota, in the north before moving abroad when I was 18.
Lots of great hunting in those areas.
Yeah, but I wasn't raised in a hunting family. I was raised in a fishing family.
Still just as good. You still learn some of the basics that all crosses over.
Yeah, growing up, we just had a lot of freshwater fishing. That was a big part. My dad grew up on the West Coast in the Pacific Northwest. I mean, technically I was born in Portland, Oregon, but never lived there. And that's where my dad's family's from. And he grew up fishing inland and saltwater, fly fishing. That was his life growing up and brought that to the Midwest. We did a lot of freshwater stuff.
Yeah, beautiful.
Pretty much my whole life.
Oregon's a hunting and fishing mecca. I've got a few mates over there and it's just the game and the fishery over there is just amazing.
Beautiful
from what
spot.
I see. They're constantly on different game and all the different types and species of fish they're chasing over there, both saltwater and freshwater, is just absolutely awesome. I definitely want to get over to Oregon one day, whether it's hunting or fishing.
That whole area, the Pacific Northwest, is gorgeous. I spent a couple of years living on Vancouver Island in Canada as well. And, it's the same coastline, same climate. I went up through BC into Alaska, and that whole Pacific Northwest, that whole coast is just heaven on earth.
Yeah, beautiful.
It's lush and full of things to eat and hunt and fish.
So what made you jump down to Australia and then, Queensland, Victoria, down to Tassie?
My wife's Australian.
Oh,
I went backpacking when I was 18, as young people do, and I met an Australian girl at a hostel and followed her back to Australia, and we're within a couple weeks of having our second kid.
Oh, awesome. Congratulations. How old's the first one?
Theo is 3 and about a quarter now.
Oh, yeah,
turned
beautiful.
3 in June.
My youngest is 3.5, so it's a fun, interesting age, isn't it?
It is. Yes. Yes, it is.
So, what do you do for work, Josh?
Too much. No. So I run an online fitness business. I've been a PT, amongst other things, pretty much most of my adult life. I've always been in health and fitness. So I spent a bunch of time in my early mid-20s working in massage, manual therapies, and studying fitness. And then I transitioned from exclusively working in manual therapies to working in gyms. And I spent a lot of time in the powerlifting and boxing worlds where I was competing at the time. But over the last 12 years I've been in the industry, I've slowly moved more and more online, and now I work exclusively online with a couple assistant coaches and a nutritionist. And in there for a while I was working as a wilderness guide when I moved to Tasmania. That was one of the first things I did when I came here.
That's awesome. What was it like being a wilderness guide down in Tassie?
Well, I mean, it's a great place to be. the job itself is a very interesting thing. It's a mix of pros and cons, but just being outside on the trail all the time, and that's sort of something I wanted to gain more experience in on a professional level, because I wanted to work more with backpackers, and that was my branding for quite a while. Was, Coach Josh, backpacking coach, and I still work with people in tactical fields and outdoors fields where they need a little bit more specialist work, and that's sort of the crossover into hunting and what I do with myself and what I help other people do.
No, that's awesome. No, it's definitely something that I definitely need to work on, especially after hunting New Zealand this year. I got a real wake-up call, as I did the last time I hunted New Zealand. It's especially being in the altitude that, from South Australia, you're at sea level, and then going over there and, you're camping at 400 meters above sea level or whatever it was. It was just absolute crazy.
Yeah, they got some great terrain over there. The altitude kills me. I did a few weeks up in the Himalayas a few years back, and just going from sea level, like I was working as a professional wilderness guide at the time. I was very well in shape for backpacking and hiking, but the altitude, man, it's just another ball game.
Yeah, it's something that I don't have to deal with over here. So hunting over there is just a definite wake-up call. Watching these New Zealanders, they're just like mountain goats moving through that terrain.
Yeah,
and I'm stopping for a breath every 2.5 minutes.
Yeah,
it was a good way to take in the views, though. So,
oh yeah, I can't beat mountain trekking.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful place. So I guess Tasmania is a similar climate to where you're from, or is it?
No, Tasmania is great. It doesn't get too hot. It doesn't get too cold. The weather never sticks around too long. Where I went back for Christmas for the first time in like 5 or 6 years, went back to Minnesota to visit the family and have them meet my son. And there was about 2 weeks where it didn't get above -20. Like that was the high temperature for about 2 weeks. Like it is insane. And I was getting stir crazy. Like you just can't leave the house without burning your lungs and freezing your nose hairs. And I'm just like, how did I grow up in this? How do people live here? Like it's beautiful and stuff, but I'm just like, this kind of months where you're basically like sprinting from door to car and car to the next place you're trying to get. You're never spending any time outside. Like it's no way to live.
I guess that's Tasmania for the rest of Australia, though.
Oh, I know. Australians are always going on about how bad Tasmania. I'm like, it barely gets to freezing. Like you get snow over the mountain, Mount Wellington, over the city. Like you get the beautiful views. You have access to winter stuff. Like we went and stayed in a cabin up in the mountains a couple months back. Blizzarded, and we went sledding and hiking in the snow. And then you drive an hour and you're back at sea level, and it's 12 degrees. Like it's it's as good as it gets.
No, that sounds too cold to live. I'll stick to South Australia, where it's over Christmas. Well, before Christmas, like early December, late November, we'll have weeks of 40 to 45 degrees.
No, absolutely not. No way. That's one of the reasons I left Melbourne. I'm like, this is bullshit. It should never get this hot.
So, how did you make the jump into hunting? You said you grew up fishing a fair bit and spent a lot of time fishing. What made you jump into hunting?
I see hunting as a duty, as an obligation. If you are a omnivore, and almost everybody is, I mean, we are as a species, but if you are eating meat and you have never had a hand in where it comes from, I don't think that's the right way to do things. I couldn't, I'm into like small scale farming and homesteading type stuff. I garden and I raise chickens for eggs and things, but I'm not comfortable with raising animals to butcher.
Yeah.
I like using them for other resources, and I have no problem with that concept. But at the same time, I'm very much like we are hunter gatherers. That's what our species is, and hunting is a big part of that. I'm a pretty comfortable gatherer and agriculturalist when it comes to small scale vegetable and fruit production, but it's like, well, I need to experience this other aspect of foundational human existence. And I've always wanted to. I've just lived in cities and stuff and have had other things to focus on. I was like, well, enough excuses. Let's just go out there and learn how to source some food.
Yeah, beautiful. And for those that don't know, you're primarily a recurve bow hunter from Tasmania.
Yes. Yes.
So how did that come about? And, you know, for people that don't know, bow hunting in Tasmania has been banned for...
Since 2016.
Okay, yeah.
I think. So just to clarify, so no one comes knocking on my door, bow hunting is technically banned, but what that means is that hunting with a bow is banned, and that only applies to game animals, protected and semi-protected species. There are feral species that are not protected by any of the hunting laws. All animals are protected by the animal, what they call them, animal cruelty laws, which applies to anything. So here in Tasmania, rabbits are considered vermin. You can take them any which way you want. You could walk up and hit them in the head with a hammer. You could smash them with your car, whatever, as long as you are, reasonably humane. Like, they're perfectly happy to use biological warfare on them and let them slowly fall apart with viral diseases, which is pretty cruel and inhumane.
Khaleesi and myxomatosis. Horrible stuff.
It's awful stuff. It's terrible. But because they are considered vermin, you can shoot them with a bow, and everybody likes to get up in arms and say, bow hunting's banned. It's like, well, these are vermin. I could take also kookaburras and feral cats as long as they're outside of 2 kilometers of someone's home. I have not had that experience. I do most of my rabbit hunting in peri-urban environments. So, semi-rural homes and small acreages and things like that, where there's a whole lot of cover for them and a lot of rabbits. And I take them with a recurve bow that I shoot bare bow. So I compete in traditional archery down here as well, because I can't really hunt that much. So I have to do other things to keep my archery skills up to scratch. But yeah, I was just like, well, these are the legalities. I guess I am going to become Coach Josh Rabbit Hunter.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with rabbits, man. I wish we had more over here, because numbers are pretty low everywhere, and I haven't had a good feed of rabbit in a while now.
They're great. I really
beautiful.
I'd never had rabbit until I decided to start hunting them, and they're delicious. I can make all sorts of things with them.
Yeah, pretty much substitute them for anything that you use chicken for. And
yeah,
it's just the Meat Eater recipe book has a great rabbit cacciatore recipe, and it's so good. It's so good. But my go-to is Kentucky Fried Rabbit or popcorn rabbit. Popcorn rabbit nuggets.
I haven't done that. I've only done sort of like rabbit mustard sauce. I've done some sort of baked and roasted dishes, but I make a lot of potted rabbit.
Yeah, beautiful.
So preserved rabbit with pork belly and herbs, and then cooked down and then sort of turned into a terrine through shredding it up. And then I put it in jars in the fridge and let it just kind of sit until it's all melded and delicious, and just eat that. It's a good way to stretch the rabbit out of it too.
Definitely. You definitely need to try popcorn rabbit though. It's so good. You can buy like a Kentucky Fried Chicken recipe packet from Woolies. Can't remember the brand. It's like a green and yellow packet, and it's take all the meat off the bones you can, just in little popcorn chicken sized pieces, and roll it around and deep fry it, and it's so good. It's one of my favorite things. Shits all over KFC.
I think there's a niche there. I think maybe we should look into branching out into like Kentucky Fried Rabbit. Well,
I heard rumors through my pop, who used to be a professional shooter back in his late teens, early 20s, and there was apparently a chicken shortage in Australia. and because the rabbit numbers were so
Oh,
high, they were selling rabbit to the KFCs as a
yeah,
substitute for chicken, and
great idea.
no one knew. I'm not sure how true that is. I'm not sure if it's just a long tale from my grandpa, but this is when they were shooting 200 pair of rabbits a night.
Honestly, that's I feel like that's the future of Australian food is we need to be using these pestilent animals in the food ways. Like we need to be using rabbits, we need to be using kangaroo, and down here in Tassie, we need to
100%.
be taking and putting wallaby on every goddamn menu.
Yep.
Like it's just there's just no good reason not to utilize these resources that are completely out of whack with the ecosystem. Like we cull them, they should be eaten.
Oh, kangaroos here. It's for every deer on my main properties, there's probably 50 to 100 kangaroos for every deer. And, the South Australian government's declared war on deer, yet doing bugger
Yeah.
all about the kangaroos, and it's just insane. There's
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. But hey, that's politicians, isn't it?
Oh, it's ridiculous. There's a kangaroo.
Are we allowed to say that on here?
Oh, yeah. Definitely. Especially after having Kate on a couple episodes ago, she doesn't like the WA politicians very much. So,
Oh, God,
as no one does at the moment. But
yeah, they're pretty shit.
So, what made you pick up a bow rather than a rifle, being down in Tassie?
Red tape. So I've shot both as a kid. Like
Yeah.
we shoot 22 semi-automatic rifles at summer camp, and we have bows and arrows. Like every kid has a fiberglass bow and arrow, and I shot them as a kid, and I've always liked the idea. And as an adult, I kept looking into getting back into archery and just always put it off. It was a financial thing, like, and then a couple of years back, I was just like, nah, just do it. Just do it. Like it doesn't have to be anything nice, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. And so I bought a compound bow actually first, and I still have my PSC Stinger.
Beautiful bows.
Great bow, fantastic. I learned so much, but I got so fed up with the cost of getting into compound archery. And I see the bow on your wall there, but like, I'm like, oh, this site is garbage, and I need to get a new release date. And like every time I look at something halfway decent, it's the cost of just buying a new recurve bow. And I was like, nah, I'm just putting this on the wall. I'm done with this. I'm gonna go and I'm gonna buy a recurve bow. I'm gonna learn that shit. I'm gonna take all the contraptions off of it. I'm gonna shoot trad. I'm gonna build my own arrows and shoot with feathers. And that's what I do now. And I was doing it. And that's what I did. So I was just like, yep, cool. But it was mostly because I was like, the red tape to get a firearms license here was obscene. And it's like, the cost, firearms are very expensive.
Yep.
Like everything about them is very expensive. That said, I've just got my photo taken for my firearms license like yesterday. So I'm going down that route because there's deer here that need to be eaten, and they won't let me shoot it with a pointy stick. So I'm going to shoot it with a gun. But I had to try the archery thing first, and make sure the rabbits were afraid of me.
That's awesome. What's the target archery scene like in Tassie?
Around Hobart, it's pretty good. Like we got some really big and really awesome clubs here. It's primarily Olympic style recurve, so sights, bow clickers, fancy aluminum risers and carbon limbs and all that jazz. It's pretty popular. Some really big clubs. The trad scene is basically non-existent. There are 3 clubs in Tasmania. The nearest one's an hour away in the Huon Valley. And then there's 2 other clubs, one in Burnie, and then one over in St. Helens. And it's a small community on the mainland. Queensland has dozens and dozens. Like traditional archery is massive up there, even over in Western Australia. So many great clubs, huge events, like nationwide musters, state musters, lots of cool stuff going on. Down here, it's pretty small. There's only, maybe 30 to 50 members of Traditional Archery Australia down here. But archery in general is actually pretty accessible, and there's a lot of options. But every time someone shows up with string silencers on, or fat hunting style arrows. They're like, bow hunting's illegal here, and I'm like, sort of. I'm gonna eat your rabbits.
Yeah, that's a crazy one. What's the common views on hunting in those archery clubs down there? Like, would you have support if you tried to overturn?
Probably not.
No?
Probably not, man. I don't understand it. I remember the first traditional archery club that I went to up in Burnie. The head of the Tasmanian Traditional Archery Association branch runs that club up there. And I told him, I'm like, I'm doing this because I want to produce food with it. And I run into this actually a lot in general with hunting, where people are like, oh, I'm so against hunting. And it's like, well, you eat meat, right? And they're like, yeah, but I don't like hunting. It's like, well, that doesn't make any sense. But my view of hunting in my head is not what most people have in their head. What I have in my head is Steven Rinella and Donnie Vincent and Cam Hanes and people who are one with the land, going out on their own can-do attitude, backpacking into the middle of the wilderness somewhere, like spending days tracking the most monstrous and amazing thing to test their will against, taking this beautiful animal, cherishing all the food that they can get from it, honoring the creature, and then carrying it out on their back to go share it with their friends, family, and community. And I'm like, fuck yeah, that's everything awesome. And I mentioned hunting to people around here, and they're like, oh, so you go out in a ute in a field at night with a giant spotlight and machine gun everything in sight, and then take your picture with it. And I'm like, what are you talking about? That's not hunting. That's culling. That's basically farming. So there's a huge difference in what I see and what a lot of people perceive hunting to be locally, I've seen. And the archery clubs are very odd in that they are really generally like, ooh, we don't talk about that stuff here. And I think it's because of the stigma around bow hunting and making sure that they are not associated with any potential I hate to say poaching, because it's not poaching per se, just it's legalities around it, and they don't want that potential inquiry into their club, I suppose.
Yeah, it's a funny one. Like here in South Australia with the potential bow hunting ban, we had one of our archery clubs go from trophy bow hunters to trophy field archers. They changed their name.
The same stuff.
As soon as they started, this negativity started, they changed their name straight away. Which, I think is pretty
Everyone
cowardly.
just rolled over for that shit. Yeah, it is. It's the same here. Like, I looked into it. Like, I came to Tassie after the ban. Didn't know about the ban when I was looking into bow hunting. I was like, this is going to be a great place to bow hunt. And I look into it, and I look at the clubs and the businesses, and everyone just basically like rolled over, put their hips in the air, and said, yeah, we'll do what you say, for absolutely no reason.
Yeah, it blows my mind. As far as I know, you haven't been able to hunt deer with a bow in Tassie for a lot longer than the bow hunting ban's been in place over there. And then in 2016, I think it went from deer to goats and stuff like that. Whatever else.
So some clarity around that. I don't know if you saw the incident. So there was a couple patty melons. Oh, I think it was patty melon and a wallaby that had some photos taken of them at a public park.
Yeah.
They had field tip arrows through them. They're like aluminum arrows, basically not hunting apparatus, not hunting gear, in bad place shots, through the legs and things like that. And so someone saw photos of that and got all over the internet, and all the animal rights activists were like, oh my God, bow hunting, bow hunting, bow hunting. And then Steve Gutwin at the time was head of Primary Industries, and came out and said, we're banning bow hunting. But actually nothing was really allowed to be taken with a bow except deer up until that point. And so they're like, because somebody, probably young people using non-hunting equipment, shot some animals that are already illegal to take because they're natives, which is another argument entirely. Yep. But they're not allowed to take the natives with an arrow. So they're already doing something illegal with an illegal or poorly chosen setup. They're like, okay, so now we're going to take away the only legal game you have in Tasmania from all the law-abiding citizens. And it's like, and then everyone's like, yeah, it's a good idea. Let's just go with that.
Yeah, South Australia seen a very similar thing on the lead up to Susan Close's, potential bow hunting ban. Is there was an incident off of Kangaroo Island with a seal. We've had a few, kangaroos and stuff, a few cats as well. But it all leads back to the exact same thing that you said. It's all non-hunting gear. It's all field points and non-hunting arrows, whether they're, just aluminium arrows with a field point. And, yeah, it blows
and illegal targets.
Yep, exactly.
And they're not taking away. They're not going to take away bow hunting gear, even.
No.
There's still the exact same equipment's going to be available. There's still going to be absolutely no regulations on that. Everyone can still go out and buy whatever they want. But now all the law-abiding, tax-paying citizens who are feeding into the economy around that are the ones being punished, which basically means rural people and small businesses.
That's it. It's it blows my mind how it can get like this. And same with, Western Australia with the whole, limiting of how many firearms you can own, where it's, they were talking about 5. I'm not sure if it was at the end 5 or 10. I can't remember, but still ridiculous. And then, all this duck stuff that's happening in Victoria and South Australia at the moment, you coming from the States, where, hunting waterfowl is just, it's not an everyday occurrence, but, it's so well managed and it's just a part of lifestyle over there. It's just insane.
Well, it's like you said, it's a managed thing. In the U.S., hunting pays for things like national parks and reserves, and you buy your tags for whatever you're hunting, or you buy your hunting permits and things, and you buy your equipment, even firearms. Like, the money you spend on that goes back into the system to maintain conservation efforts.
That's it.
And it's a matter of management, like you said. And these people, if we can even call them that, let's call them politicians, say what they are. These politicians, they look for the bleeding hearts and the people who are the loudest and the most obnoxious in all of society. And they say, we're going to pander to you because we can't manage these resources. That it's like, how much money Australia could bring in from international hunting tourism for feral animals?
Yeah, it's insane.
I talked to my bow hunting friends in the US, guys who take, elk and deer regularly, and they're like, yeah, when's season there? I'm like, well, there isn't seasons. Like, you can go and hunt a buffalo, the scrub bull, up in the north whenever you want. You could take boars big as your car any time of year. You can go hunt donkeys and camels and like 5 types of deer across the country, basically whenever. Oh, also there's rabbits. And people are like, what? Why don't people know about this? I'm like, I don't know. I guess Australia doesn't want to make money.
Yeah, it blows my mind, having the channels that I have and just chatting to the international people that I chat to, and, explaining to them that we've got 6 species of deer, 5 of which you can hunt pretty much all year round. That most of, red and fallow deer rut is in the off season for majority of Americans. So, they could hunt 2 ruts a year if they want to. Plus, you got the sambar, the rusa, the chital. Americans are obsessed with chital, or axis deer as they refer them to. Yeah. And then when you start telling them about camels and donkeys and scrub bulls and, wild dogs and feral cats and the list goes on, that blows their mind, because we got something like 26 or 28 different animals we can legally hunt here. Like, it's insane. And as you said, the tourism that we could, if we, branched out on it, had international licenses and encourage people to come over here, it could be a great economic booster.
Especially for rural areas, like those areas that aren't bringing in a lot of tourism dollars. Great opportunity.
One thing that blows my mind about Australia, and you look at New Zealand and America, is that you can take your animals to a butcher shop and they're going to process it all for you, make all the sausages and that. So you're not spending thousands of dollars on, bone saws and mincers
Yeah.
and sausage makers and all of that. You can take it and get all of that made up for you, because it is a time consuming. If you work a full-time job, you have a family, plus you hunt, there's having those access to businesses that would do that for you is just insane. And I don't understand why we don't allow that here. It's just,
Well, it's for your own protection.
yeah, it's bloody nuts. And it's, the whole culling thing over here. And, I know Tasmania has a fair issue with culling the fallow deer over there. What's your take on the seasons for fallow deer over there?
The purpose of a season is to manage populations and make sure there's still enough to continue the practice of hunting them. So does it make sense to have a season for that purpose and then at the end of season spend 4 to 6 weeks flying around in a helicopter murdering every deer you can spot in your thermals? No, it doesn't make any sort of sense. That's a government style solution. Let's take more money that we don't have to account for, spend a heap of it, and waste a resource because it's eating the plants. It's like, well, open the season. Let other people access that. Let people eat those animals, or at least go in, turn it into food, and then make money off of it. Sell it.
There's that.
If the government was like, we're going to do a cull, and then all of a sudden we have all this like $6 a kilo venison, hell yeah.
One thing that I thought would be awesome if they're going to continue down this culling phase from helicopters is, in the States, places like Texas have organizations called Hunt for the Homeless, and there's various other organizations. If they collected these deer, dropped them off to a processor, rather than, in South Australia, filling them up full of buckshot and BBs, they could, feed. Adelaide's homeless population is just skyrocketed the past couple of years. It's just ridiculous. I'm not sure what homelessness is like down in Tassie, but Adelaide
it's too cold for most people here.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. But yeah, it's so bad here in Adelaide, and the food that you could feed these people, and struggling families as well. You could have these organizations that give people wild game and feed them. So it blows my mind.
If any organization or entity is saying, hey, we were going to take your money and waste all this food and then say that, there are people starving and there's homeless issues and there's not enough food for certain populations, they don't care about you. Like, this is a resource that is already being utilized. Well, it's already being removed from the environment. If you're culling something, utilize that. That is wasteful. It is offensive that you would just like go out and kill heaps of, especially natives that you're not allowed to, say, hunt with a bow or hunt in a lot of situations except for crop protection. Like I'm right outside of Hobart. 2 houses down, there's a big empty block, and every night there's around 50 wallabies on that empty block on the side. I can see it's a hill, so you can't see the other side. It's like these things are in plague proportions, and they are being poisoned and killed and shot for crop protection, but no one gets to utilize them. It's just ridiculous.
There is a wallaby season over there, isn't there, for them? There's a fella that I'm friends with on Facebook. He shotguns them.
Yeah, you can get heaps of them if you've got crop protection permits or permission to hunt lands. I think forestry. So I've got permission to hunt on some forestry blocks, which is where I'll go for deer next season. And you can take you can take wallaby, and I believe you can take the patty melon too. So you can basically take wallaby year round.
Yeah. And are they Bennett's wallabies? Is that what they are?
Yeah, Bennett's.
Yeah. So same as, so they got released from Tassie to New Zealand, and that's their main issue So
Whoa.
Bennett's wallabies in New Zealand are in, plague proportions and feral numbers.
Yeah,
They're pretty much,
because there's nothing to control them.
yeah. So when I went over there, the American boys had a blast trying to find a couple of them to take each.
They're tasty.
Yeah, they are. We cooked some up. We stayed in a cabin with we had a couple of backpackers stop in and stay in the same cabin as us. So we cooked them up some tar and some wallaby, and
Oh, that's
so
cool.
They were pretty cool. One was from the Netherlands, one was from Sweden. So they had a good eye opener for them, and they were craving a pretty warm meal and you're living off of backpacking rations for the last couple of months. So they were pretty stoked with that. So with the bow hunting gear, you've done a trip over to the mainland bow hunting. When was that? About a year ago, maybe a bit longer?
It was April.
Oh, April this year. All right. So what type of gear did you get in preparation for that, and what did you go chasing?
So I went chasing pig. We've got a friend of my wife's. They've got a bush block out near Owallan, New South Wales. So about an hour in from Ulladulla region. Really, really nice bush, just kind of open, scrubby, beautiful, beautiful country. And they have heaps of pigs. Pig problem up there. And feral pig and feral goat are like my two target species that I really want to go for, because I eat a lot of pig and I eat a lot of goat from farms.
Goat's amazing.
And on that note, pig and goat in Tasmania are considered stock. So even if they're feral, they're owned by the owner of the property. And so that is another one of the species you can take with a bow, as long as you have permission to take them, because they are not protected in any way. That said, I have not seen any feral. There's technically no feral pigs, they say, but there are feral goats, but I have yet to come across them. Just sign. But anyway, so I was up there going for pig. And what did I take? So I've got a Black Hunter takedown. So a Black Hunter is a super cheap Chinese-made recurve bow. It's like the Samick Sage from China.
Yep.
Samick Sage is a Korean bow. Very similar price points, a little bit cheaper. They've got some cooler looking risers, and they got a lot of limbs that you can get in a million different poundages. So I have, what was I shooting? Those are 50-pound longbow limbs. So I've got a modern riser, but I shoot longbow limbs. Jack Spinks string.
Beautiful.
As you should be shooting. And I was using carbon arrows. So I shoot carbons most of the time. In competition for traditional archery, you have to shoot woods. So I make wooden arrows for those things. But I love carbon. So I was shooting, what were they? Easton Power Flights. And the broadheads were, so I standardized all of my arrow shafts using weighted inserts, because I only buy 125 grain tips, whether it's broadheads or field points or blunts. I only get 125s, and then I weight everything with inserts or outserts, just to standardize that. And I was shooting, is it Alien Archery?
Yep, Alien Archery. Great stuff.
Yeah, it must be what it was. I have a bunch of Alien Archery and a bunch of Zots, Cayugas, which I quite like too, but I like the Alien Archery a lot just because it's so simple and punchy.
What Alien Archery heads are you running?
I knew you were going to ask that.
Jumping on to fact check.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're the replicants. Replicants. Yeah, it must have been the replicants.
No,
just saying what my last order was.
They hit hard. I've got a few here in the drawers. The V2s, they're 175. I think they're 175 grains. They hit hard, and they're super tough. And can't remember, but I've taken a few goats with them, and they're nice. Super effective.
They're just basically invincible. Like, I like the simple design. Single bevel, 2-blade. That's it. Like, you don't need anything super fancy for most game. You just need to be a good shot, and you gotta have the woodsman skills that get you close. So I shoot those with a Eagles Flight 4-arrow quiver.
Yeah, beautiful.
Bow quiver, which is a beautiful quiver, just absolutely lightest thing in the world. Sits so nice on the bow. Yeah, and so I went up there for a couple days trying to chase pigs, and it was a cool trip. I heard deer
Yeah, wow.
out there.
Fallow or
I'm
reds?
assuming fallow.
Yeah, beautiful.
They're kind of barking. I heard them out in the bush in the distance because it was just massive chunk of land. But they were way off in the distance, and I spent most of my time sitting around the water holes and looking at pig sign. And I was out there for 2 days, and just like sun up to sundown hunting. Did a lot of sitting and a lot of walking and exploring and following game trails, and just saw nothing. Absolutely not a thing. So much, pig sign, pig shit, holes dug, tracks from the water holes, but didn't hear anything, didn't see anything. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, how can there be this much sign and I see nothing? And I'm like, yeah, maybe I'm not the best hunter in the world, but like I'm using the wind and I'm being very mindful of what's going on. And it's like, if I can get within 10 meters of a rabbit, surely I can get close enough to at least see a pig. Nothing. And then I was on the end of my second day, and I was like, well, all right, I got to head back because I got to get back before dark. So I pack up, and I usually just do my backpacking gear, and I use a tarp, sleep under a tarp. And I start hiking my way out, and I come over this ridge to where I can see the road and my car parked there. And there's 3 pigs standing in front of my car.
Oh, no.
I'm just like, what are I come over this hill and the pigs, they like look at me and I look at them and they bolt. And there was a fence and my car, and on this side of the fence, there was 3 pigs. I was just stunned. And so I drop all my stuff and I try to come around with the wind and sneak up on it, and it just gone. Spent like an hour trying to follow them up, but I was just like, I guess that's hunting, isn't it? That's why they call it, hunting, not
That's it.
finding and shooting.
Oh man, the amount of times I've joked about that when I've gone hunting, you go out for deer on the deer block and it's just, you're not seeing anything. It's like, oh, what if you get back to the car and there's a big buck or a big stag or a big billy standing right in front of your car? Would you put the shot in it, knowing that you'd get a pass through into your car? And it's like, it'd be bloody tempting.
I was like a couple hundred meters off. Like, there's no way I can take that shot with a trad bow. But God, you'd be tempted.
Yeah, 100%. What type of preparations did you do for the hunt? Were you like using online maps to check out the property before you went and mark out water sources?
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly what I did. So I really like, and I do this with the rabbit hunting properties too, is I really like to use, we got what's called list maps here in Tasmania. So the land survey maps, and they're awesome resource. And I do that with backpacking and trekking and stuff too, is I like to scout the landscape on maps. I have a lot of maps, but also any sort of aerial photography and topography maps. If I can overlay like the landscape with a topography map, I'm super happy. So I did do that. I kind of had, because I had to know the boundaries of the property as well. And there was a river valley. Well, there was a valley that would have held a creek, but it was dry. So I was kind of like, all right, I don't know what's going to be going on here. We have one dam here. This is the general lay. It's pretty level until you get to the back of where the dam is. And then it drops down into this huge valley, then up into these hills. And so I liked to, in general, I like to scout ahead, see like what my plan of attack is going to be, which avenue I'm going to come in. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to come in. I can't just walk straight down the main drag from the gate if the wind's coming this way, or like, so having a few different avenues of approach. Like if you're limited to like, this is the trail or there's only one way in, well, it is what it is. But I kind of looked ahead and I was like, okay, so there's one main 4-wheel drive track up through the middle, and there's a side track that goes around the dam, and then one that borders the property on the other side. I'm going to go into the main block where they have some storage stuff and set up my camp. And then I'm going to either see what the wind's doing or what time of day it is. scout and sit the dam the first night at sunset or up into sunset, and then I'm going to spend the mornings sunrise at the other end of the dam, look at going back to that river during the day, spending some time back there and seeing if there's tracks, like planning that stuff out well in advance and having a game plan is, I think, just a good idea in general, because like you can learn a lot from landscape. Like, you know where animals are going to want to be. It's like they're going to want access to water. They're going to want access to cover. If it's during the day, they're definitely going to be under cover. You know, you want to be in those boundary areas as the day transitions. You want to be near water when it's hot, or, you know, morning, evening, and like understanding just landscape and animal in general behavior is just good planning.
Yeah, exactly. So did you have any like people that influenced your hunting, any role models, anyone that, you know, that you've gone out with and learned stuff with, or is it all self-taught and just videos and YouTube?
It's all self-taught, because I'm in Tassie. There's no one here that will say that they're a bow hunter out loud, you know, because it's just such a tricky thing to say, because we used to have a big bow hunting community. Everyone talks about this bow hunting community, and people used to go up to the mainland all the time, and then, you know, they live down here, but now people don't even talk about it. So it's just kind of self-taught, a lot of online Facebook groups and forums, a lot of YouTube, and a lot of just, well, if I can hit something at this distance, great. Now I'm going to go out and try to get that close to a rabbit, because rabbits are small. And when I was using compound bow, like I could take a rabbit 25 to 30-ish meters pretty good, pretty consistently. And then with the trad bow, you know, I need to get under 15 meters to be real accurate. Like, there's just too much wiggle room, and I don't want to punch it through the gut and ruin the meat and torture the rabbit. So it's like, you gotta know your limits, and then you go out and you try to stay under them.
Yeah. No, rabbits.
Luckily with rabbits too, like that's where I cut my teeth on. But luckily it's one of those things, like, you generally just either hit them or you don't.
Yeah.
They're not big.
What about European hares? Do you have European hares over there?
We do. I have not seen any. I think there's more up in the north, but I haven't done any hunting up there.
Once you cut your teeth on those fellas, they're one of my favorite things to bow hunt. They're
cool,
awesome fun to chase. But yeah, by the time I took my first rabbit with a bow, I'd already taken a few deer and a heap of goats, and like, rabbits are just, you know, because the numbers here aren't that great, but they're awesome fun. And then you chat to the older bow hunting community, and just the amount of rabbits that they would shoot with bows back in the day. They'd sit off of a rabbit warren in a makeshift blind, and they'd just shoot rabbits and cats all day. You know, you'd get foxes and cats come through the warren, and they'd just shoot them as well, and it's just absolutely insane. I know it's not great for a conservation standpoint, but I wish the rabbit numbers were greater.
You're not allowed to say that.
Yeah, I know.
Rabbits are bad.
I know.
But yeah, honestly, it's kind of one of those things I feel like should just be part of growing up. It's like, you learn how to source food, you learn how to raise a garden and shoot some rabbits back home. It's, you know, it's rabbits and squirrels, you know, or like, you know, pheasants or something. Like, the small game should be a part of growing up, I think. And there's just so much opportunity for it here.
Oh man, I wish we had squirrels. I've said it on the podcast before. It's just, you know, when I went over to Texas, we seen one. It was probably like 150 meters running across the road, and I was spewing. I wanted to shoot and eat a squirrel so freaking bad.
They're pretty tasty.
Oh, I've heard they're very tasty. Similar to rabbit. I've heard, and I also want to.
They're much darker.
I also want to go to the Arkansas World Squirrel Cook-Off they have over there.
That'd be awesome.
Oh, it sounds so good. I was listening to Clay Newcomb's Bear Grease podcast, and they covered it. And, you know, they were making all sorts of squirrel dishes. I'm like, oh, it sounds so good.
I got a buddy up in Vancouver who squirrel hunts with a blowgun.
Yeah, beautiful. Oh, I love blowguns. They're so much fun.
So cool. Also illegal here,
Yeah, I know. It's
which
crazy.
is ridiculous.
It's
I know, it's
so
just gonna be me complaining about stuff.
yeah. Oh, don't worry.
Um,
We do a lot
well,
of that on
listen,
this
listen. If
podcast.
you need a contact to get some squirrels, I know some people. A squirrel habit, like if a squirrel population all of a sudden shows up here,
Oh,
this conversation never happened.
apparently, chatting to some people after one of my earlier episodes, Melbourne had a small feral squirrel population, and Western Australia has a small African squirrel population in around Perth. So
Still?
yeah, I think Perth still has theirs. Melbourne doesn't. But yeah, there was a few small, and apparently
wonder-
Adelaide also had a small population around the
I
botanical
wonder why they didn't
gardens.
take off.
I don't know, but I wish they did.
I wonder if it's competition with possums.
Yeah, more than likely. Probably competition with possums and the predatory birds we have over here.
Yeah.
They'd pick them off pretty quick.
How interesting.
What about going out with a rifle hunter? Because there's plenty of rifle hunters and deer hunters over in Tassie. Have you gone out with someone to learn the ropes on a larger animal, or is it something that you would like to do?
Yeah. So I haven't gone out with anybody here. I've butchered pigs before. So large animals. Honestly, I've found that the more animals that I've butchered, the more my anatomy lessons at university kind of just come back, and you go, oh, everything's the same. Like mammals are mammals; they're pretty easy to dismember. But no, I haven't been out with anybody here. I've got some friends up in Victoria. A buddy of mine, you might know him, Caleb O'Grady.
Caleb's been on the podcast, so great dude.
Oh, of course he has. Yeah. So we've been chatting a lot, and we're going to set up a time for Tasmania deer season next year. So I'm getting all my firearms stuff together specifically for the coming deer season. And so we're going to pick some dates, and we're going to go out bush and do that stuff. And I figure he'll be able to make sure I know what I need to do. And then we're going to try and set up a time for me to come up to Victoria as well.
Yeah, well, beautiful. If you're ever in Adelaide, sing out, or if you ever plan on heading to Adelaide,
100%.
sing out, and we'll get you out. But yeah, I'm slowly starting to plan a Samba trip next year sometime. And Caleb's like, if you do it, let me know. I'll come sherry camp with you. So he's a good dude.
Yeah, let me know. Let me know if you get some plans going.
Yeah, we'll do. I've hunted Samba once, but yeah, after hunting hog deer last year, it's just made me want to go hunt Samba even more after passing through all that Samba country.
It's nice country up there.
Is that something you do? Do you put in for the hog deer permit for the ballot?
No.
You should.
No, I haven't bothered yet. Once I get all my firearms stuff, because the firearms thing is new to me as an adult, So once I get all this sorted and figure out what I need, I'm going to start looking at the logistics, because a big thing for me is I want the meat. And so if I'm going to the mainland to hunt, I need to drive and take the ferry and then have the equipment to keep that frozen and take it back. So I have to look into logistics of that. I know there are some services that will allow you to freeze and ship it as well. I've got a friend who went over to New Zealand to hunt as well, looking at how to get that back here to Tasmania. So like a big thing for me is like I really want to make sure I utilize that meat, even if I don't get to keep it all. Like it's fine as long as it gets utilized. So I haven't really looked into too much on the mainland yet, except for going after sandbar with Caleb.
If you put in, I reckon you'd have a good shot at getting one with a bow, whether it was a mature stag or just a hind or a spiker. After seeing numbers this year, it's something that if I dedicated time to, I reckon I would have been able to get one with the bow, but I just wanted to tick the species off and get it done.
Cool.
But I reckon you'd have a fair shot especially with your experience hunting rabbits, and rabbits are cunning, tricky little buggers. I reckon you'd have a good shot with the bow. I think there's been a couple of guys that have taken them with recurves over on Snake Island and in the ballot periods. But yeah, I reckon you'd have a pretty good chance. And I think the ballot closes on the 31st, so you still got time. I think it's about $25. I can send you a link after if you remind me, but yeah,
I'm just gonna write it down.
I've been telling everyone
ballot.
to enter it, so there's probably going to be way more increase, especially after doing the podcast this year on it. But it's a cool hunt, and I recommend everyone to do it.
Cool. Yeah, I'll dig into that.
Yeah, there's a fella down your way, Shane, who I think he took 25 years to draw it. So, but he took a really, really nice stag over there. But yeah, he brings it. He does a mainland trip a few times a year for Samba, but so he freezes everything and brings it all back and makes sausages. He'd be a good guy to hook you up with. He gets onto a fair amount of fallow down that way, and he utilizes everything. So he'd be a really good role model to show you the ropes around.
That's what I like to hear.
The deer stuff.
Yeah.
And he's got a world of knowledge. He's taken all 6 deer species in Australia and a few New Zealand species, and sika and tar, and he's just
cool.
An absolute weapon. So other than just online preparation, what else did you do to prepare for a hunt? Because it's a reasonably big hunt, jumping across from Tassie over to New South Wales on a hunt by yourself when you've never really done a hunt. Was there much more that you did?
Not really. I just tried to get out as much here. So I changed my physical training up based on what I'm doing. So I've had a couple traditional archery tournaments. They're kind of multi-day tournaments here, so usually at least 2 days. And so I stay more or less in shape all the time. But like for the tournaments, I'll start transitioning away from other forms of training and building up more volume of just archery time, because 2 days of field archery, like, you're just wrecked. And so it's a lot of like building that stamina and being able to repeat the shot over and over and shooting when you feel like shit. And so whereas with the hunting stuff, if I know I'm going to go out for a hunt, and in particular this pig hunt, I'm not going to have to take a lot of shots. You don't actually shoot that much when you hunt. This is the thing that I think a lot of people get wrong, where they're spending, like, you need to be accurate, but you don't need to. You need to be first shot accurate. You need to be accurate when cold. And that's what you have to get really, really good at. And that's very similar to my experiences in like powerlifting and strongman. It's like you have to be able to do something really, really well once. It's not a 3-minute round. It's not repetitions. And so spending a lot of time just taking pot shots and stuff, I found more valuable, but also just more time on trail, walking, running, just generally, because you're gonna spend a lot of time sitting, but I'm not very good at sitting. I like to try and still hunt, and so it's a lot of walking and tracking and that kind of thing. So spending more time on trail, watching videos of people and individuals going over their process of how they still hunt or how they track, and understanding the animal, looking at their behavior, looking at what variations you might see in that area, and in this case too, talking to the owners of the property and see what kind of behavior they've noticed. So studying the animal, studying your art, understanding your woodcraft, not just for the camping stuff, but navigating through the bush, understanding how to use your optics well, and how to scout, and then just being capable of moving consistently, because it's backpack hunting with a moderate to lightweight backpack on through the bush. And so it's a lot of skill-based stuff, and then just general fitness. Like, if you're out of shape, overweight, and weak, you're gonna have a hard time literally doing everything. So just maintaining good level of fitness, but transitioning more to walking, running, trail running, less of the weight focus, and then spending more time mastering my skill sets.
Yeah, beautiful. You mentioned glass and that there a minute ago. Let's run through your gear. What binos are you running? Bino harness, all of that type of stuff.
All my shit's cheap.
Yeah.
I've got the Vortex Diamondbacks.
Yep.
10 by 42, I think they are, with the harness that comes with them.
Yep.
I bought a set when I was over in the US at Christmas because they had a Christmas sale at Shields.
Beautiful.
Outdoor stores, man, in the US.
Oh,
if you've ever been, they're the best.
Oh,
they're the best.
If you ever go to Texas, go check out Academy. Absolutely crazy. So cool. And just Bass Pro and Cabela's are just mind-blowing.
Yeah, there's nothing like it over here. There was all the Christmas sales, and so I picked up the Vortex Diamondbacks and the Vortex Simple Harness, and then I've got a small Amazon rangefinder.
Yeah, beautiful.
Wasn't too expensive. It's been very accurate in the ranges that I use, because I tested a lot when setting up because I got a small field archery range at my house here. Up the side, it's just up a hill, and so I use the angle adjusting rangefinder to set all my targets up. That's about all I use.
What about knives? What knives are you running while you're out?
As many as I can carry. So I've got a buck knife, just one of their basic hunting skinning knives. Nothing too fancy. I've had it for years. It's a high carbon one, holds an edge really nice. I use that for rabbits. It's a little bit big for a lot of that, but it's just easy to get under the skin and take heads off. And then I also either carry the little SOG TAC XR Cryo 2. So beautiful, one of these little guys. It's a really, really handy one that I use for rabbit hunting a lot as well. Just I carry one pocket and I carry one belt knife. If I'm not using that, I'm using an Opinel. And I've skinned farm pigs with this little guy. They're just brilliant blade, so easy to use, lightweight, super sharp. That's my little bit of everything. So I'll either use that for rabbits, or I'll use the SOG. Yeah, I'll carry the buck around as well, just as a belt knife, because what I do for at least rabbit hunting is I use a bum bag system. So I've got a little bum bag, and I use the belt off that to carry the belt knife, because if I have a handful of rabbits and I need to chop heads real quick, I want the bigger knife for that. And so when I was out for the pig, I just basically carried that set. I carried the buck on the belt. In that case, actually, it was buck on the backpack, and then I carried the SOG in the pocket. And then I carried an Opinel in the pack as a spare, along with a multi-tool. And that's basically my knife setup. And then I just keep them sharp.
Sounds like me carrying more knives than you actually need.
Yeah, I mean, because when it comes to it does. And when it comes to backpacking, like all my gear is really, really light. And so if I'm going to go out bush with the focus of hunting, I'm going to carry more than I need to, because I'm not actually walking that far compared to when I was working on trail.
Yeah. And the Opinel do, because they're the mushroom foragers, go-to item. Do you do much foraging over in Tassie? Is there many mushrooms?
Some. I did more when I lived in Victoria, just because I had better access to like pine tree forests, and so you go out for saffron milk caps and slippery jacks and things like that, and no other mushrooms at all except those in those pine forests. But some here, like I've gone out for slippery jacks. There's not heaps that I'm familiar with. I have a couple mushroom gardens here at home that I've made for shiitakes and king strapharias, so I don't really forage much, but I did more on the mainland.
Yeah, beautiful. Foraging something that I've been really, really keen on recent years. I haven't been able to do too much of it, but it's something that I've been, I found a few shaggy mane mushrooms here and there, and they've been a delight to cook up and eat. And then I found a bunch of edible puff balls and
cool,
a bunch of other stuff. I didn't actually like the puff balls though. They were a strange flavor, similar to tofu, and I don't like tofu, so that was probably my
interesting
the reason why I didn't like them. But yeah, there's. Do you guys get Puccinis over there at all? Or?
I don't know if we do. I've been out foraging with a few people before, and the big ones that we see, like a lot of the natives aren't edible as far as we know.
Yeah.
It's the introduced ones that we find mostly around pine plantations. There are bluets, which are a Tasmanian native that are blue, that you can cook and eat. I haven't. I've only seen a handful here or there, and I just haven't bothered. We do get some puffballs, but that's just never been interesting to me. We do actually, there's one that you forage seasonally here, which isn't a ground mushroom. It's a fungi that grows off of the rainforest myrtle trees,
Okay.
the Nothofagus guni, I think it is, the rainforest myrtles. And there's a symbiotic, not quite mushroom, but bright orange fungus that looks like a golf ball, like an orange golf ball that grows on the trees seasonally. And it's got kind of like a crunchy exterior with this sap inside. I've harvested a couple of them. That's kind of a niche Tasmanian thing. They only really are found here, and only old people seem to know about them. But I've done a little bit of that and just opportunistic harvesting, and they're pretty interesting. But with mushrooms, it's like I just stick to what I really know, because there's too many ways to go wrong.
Oh, definitely. That's the only thing that worries about me. There's a bunch of great mushroom foraging groups on Facebook though, so
yes,
and watching everyone do that type of foraging is awesome to see as well. Just need get people, because it's funny being on those foraging pages. A lot of them tend to be vegan hippie type
yep.
people. So
which mushroom goes best with the deer I just shot?
Yeah. I've been in that situation a couple times. Cooking up wild mushroom and venison stroganoffs and stuff like that.
Amazing.
Posting them up. Being reasonably new to hunting, what would be your top beginner tip to someone that's getting into hunting?
Oh, there's so many. I mean, it's so hard because there's so many aspects to it. That's what I like about hunting, because it's backpacking, it's wilderness skills. Because I went through a bushcraft phase before I got into long distance backpacking, and it's like you got this combination of things here. It's about procuring food. It's about being outside. So I would say that top question would be ask questions, or top tip would be just ask more questions. You're going to get a lot of grumpy old people that are going to get mad at you on the internet, but ask questions anyway. But also, I'd say if you were to focus on something, understanding and knowing your meat taker, your firearm, your weapon, whatever you want to call it, is important. But I think it's the wood skills, the understanding of the animal, the environment is probably the most important thing, because you could, if you're good enough at those skills, you could beat it over the head with a rock. Like if you were a good enough woodsman, you could walk up behind a deer and crack it over the head. I'm not, but there are people who could do such things. Like I can't remember the guy's name. Is a Canadian guy who he blow gun hunts big game. He takes black bear with a blow dart.
Tim Wells, is that who?
I think that's his name.
American, not Canadian, but yeah, he.
Canadian friend was telling me about him.
Yeah, he does a lot of blow gun hunting and spear hunting, and he's an animal.
If you're good enough, you can get close to animals with very primitive weapons and fill your freezer. The more primitive, the less range, the less accuracy. So you have to be a better woods person. So if you're an incredibly good woodsman, you'll be able to take anything. Because it doesn't matter if you can hit something at 200 yards or 100 yards or 50 yards. If you're within 5 yards, you're not going to miss.
Yeah. How did you find, you mentioned asking questions online. How did you find the bow hunting and traditional hunting people on Instagram, Facebook, when finding questions? Were they welcoming and happy to help you, or?
In general, I think they were awesome. There's some really good bow hunting Facebook groups, big ones. The traditional hunting communities are awesome because it's so niche, and old school people are generally like, very interested in helping bring up the next generation, because it's a lot of older folks, and they're not going to be around forever, and they've got a lot of lessons to pass on. So generally very, very welcoming in general. There's always the oddballs, but a lot of questions were answered very well. There's a lot of knowledge. And I was really surprised how big the traditional archery community was in Australia. Like, I think the Facebook group has a couple thousand people there, which in relation to the population is massive. Like the US traditional archery page has like 10,000. Well, there's 350 million people there, and there's 25 million here. If we got 2,000 people on that page, like that's a huge portion.
And that's just the ones
and they've
on
been
that page.
generally, that's right, and they've been really very helpful and lots of good answers and welcoming in general. I do find there's some cultural differences on that note. Like looking at, like you said, if you look at the U.S. hunting groups, or even like New Zealand, Canada, and then you look at Australia, there's tradition, and there's differences in cultural attitudes around certain things for sure. When we were talking before about the South Australia bow hunting ban, and like me kind of going, well, this is bullshit, I'm not gonna let this happen. I tell all my American and Canadian friends, they're like, yeah, fuck that. And then I tell, and in the communities over there, we're like, no, this is garbage. Like, let's stop this from happening. And then I post in a 10,000 person strong Facebook group on hunting in general here in Australia. And I'm like, we should just literally click this button to help fight this. And people are like,
yep,
it sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah, that seems to be an Australian thing in the hunting and shooting community. I've said it before, you try and do these different campaigns for, whether it's trying to change firearm laws, and just people aren't interested in doing anything. They're the first to complain when something happens, but they don't do anything or voice anything. Like, I know you had a fair bit to do with how... and getting the message across with them about the South Australian bow hunting ban. And, over here, no one does nothing. Like, there's more people in the States that are, put the word out, like Ryan Callahan, talking about it on his podcast, and, Robbie from Blood Origins, all these guys that do a fantastic job, and they're not even from Australia. They don't, they care, but it doesn't affect them if it's banned or not here.
Yeah, that was, I saw that happening, and I'm sitting here in Tasmania. I'm like, not fucking again. We're not doing this again. Like, not on my watch.
Yeah.
I got offended for you guys. And I was like, this is not happening. I'm like, all right, I know people. Let me reach out to the network. Let's see what we got. And I chatted with every hunter I know. And I got some friends over in the US who, they know people. And they're like, you need to speak with Hal. I'm like, what's Hal? They're like, check this shit out. And they put me in contact with the guys over at Hal, and I just shot him an email. I shot him a message, followed up on it, had some conversations, and they're like, yeah, okay, we could put together a campaign for you. And, we got, I don't even know how many signatures it's gotten up to. Maybe it's just under 2,000 or something. But I followed up with them, and then I followed up with Blood Origins, and they did some talking around that too, which was awesome. And then I started sending shit to MPs in South Australia. Like, I just basically was like, I don't know any of these people. I don't know what they do. But hey, all their information is on the internet. So I put together 20 something email addresses and intros. And so every time someone signed something on Hal, each one of those people got an email. And I finally got a hold of one of the new, I think it was one of the new Liberal MPs over there, because a lot of people weren't willing to talk. And I actually got an email back, and they're like, this is one of the biggest community engagements we've had on an issue. I've gotten over like 1,500 emails about this one issue, and it's like, oh, Cool.
Yeah,
So people are actually hearing this.
Sarah Game, and I'm trying to think of
Yes.
the other fella's name. I know he likes something today. I'm trying to Ben.
Sarah
Is it
Game.
Ben Hood? Ben Hood is that?
Yes, I
Yes,
think that
Ben
was.
Hood, South Australian.
Yeah.
He's been awesome on the issues. So
Yeah.
both of them have been great. I would love to actually get them on the podcast. I hate politics in general because I know nothing about it, and politicians seem to take away shit that I like. So
Yeah, that. No, Sarah Game was the only person in this. There might have been one other person, but the only one that was publicly speak out when this was proposed, and she just basically said, "This is silly, and why is this happening?" And no one else said anything. And so I got in touch with her, and just in general, watching her politics unfold through her profile on Instagram, she seems to stand up for a lot of really good shit, like actually
yeah,
representing her constituents and supporting the communities that voted her in and making sure they get a fair go of it. And her office in general has been very helpful when I've reached out to them, and it was Ben Hood too, emailing back and saying they've had great interaction from the community. People are actually saying things and saying that we don't want this. And like you said, it's been a year or something since what's her face, sponsored by RSPCA, came in to say that she's going to ban bow hunting for literally no reason whatsoever, at the same time declaring war on deer. That bow hunting ban hasn't happened.
thank God for that. Yeah, she's gone quiet on the whole topic, but there's been flooding in the Riverland and a bunch of other things that have popped up. This whole referendum as well has kept them pretty busy. So that's something that's kept people off.
Let's
of
just
it.
keep them busy.
But yeah, exactly. just play that whole referendum thing again and again and again, just to keep them away from bow hunting. But I've had a couple people message me about doing a freedom of information request to Susan Close about the bow hunting. So one of my mates is doing that at the moment. So hopefully we get some more information about it. That'll be awesome to see. I've heard rumors that she's gotten in trouble before, this being Susan Close, for not answering freedom of information requests. So she's pretty bad for not doing it. So she gets in trouble for it. So, keywords like bow hunting and, archery and all of that stuff would be awesome to find out what's going back and forth between her and RSPCA and all of that type of stuff.
Well, I mean, she's been involved with RSPCA a long time, and that was one of her one of her like campaign promises, which is a weird thing to campaign for. Like, who's up in arms about bow hunting? But anyway, like, one of the topics of emails that I sent to people was like, this would be a really good thing to just never finish talking about. Like, you put out this idea, we're going to ban bow hunting, and it's happening, and everybody got a letter, but it'd be real easy just for it to not ever be brought up because there has been no legislation on it.
That's it. Yeah, and it's a crazy one. And from my understanding, she's grown up. I think her dad was pretty big in the animal rights type of community, and she is. And it's just a rabbit hole.
Whereas Sarah Game is formerly a veterinarian, I believe.
Yes, she is. And I think she's got hunters in her family, or former hunters in her family. Ben Hood as well. His grandfather was a huge waterfowl hunter, from my understanding from chatting to him. So it's great
people who live off the land.
That's
great. Human nature.
Oh yeah, it's great seeing these people actually say that they've come from these backgrounds. Whether they do it now or not, they still have an understanding of what it's about, and that it's not just killing for the sake of killing, like government culling, It blows my mind. Moving on a bit though, top 5 items for a beginner you would recommend. What's stuff that you've gotten and, recommend, or you've tried a few different things and you've found something that you really like and recommend?
In regards to
just hunting gear in general.
Any gear. Top 5 things. Well, I mean, my thing is bows. Um, top items. Honestly, if you're just trying to get into stuff, like you're brand new and you're like, I want to become Tasmania's top rabbit hunter, and you're like, I'm gonna get into bows and archery and stuff like that. It's cheaper and more affordable in general. Like it's more budget friendly to go recurve, but it's much more time consuming. You'll spend less on money, you'll spend way more on time. Whereas if your goal is to be as efficient and get into the sport as quickly as possible, get a compound bow that's already set up. So I would say, top thing you should do is figure out which direction you want to go, figure out your budget. You don't need the fanciest shit, you need functional, and get yourself something that's going to last. The PSE Stinger series bows are fantastic. I got mine secondhand from a guy in Victoria. Like, there's so many of them going around as people upgrade.
That's what I recommend to anyone getting in. They're like, what's a good budget bow? I'm like, if you find yourself a secondhand Stinger or even a new one, I think they're about $700-ish for a package. Yeah. And that's, 5 or 6 arrows, quiver, sight, release aid, all of that.
Yeah. I would say get the full setup. I'm a tinkerer. I like to fiddle and test things and customize, even though it takes a lot of time. But I would say if you're just getting into it, just buy a setup. Make sure it's ready to go so you can practice shooting.
That's it.
Whether it's firearms, whatever, just get something that is functional and that you don't have to figure out too much. Just get good at using your weapon, your firearm, your meat gatherer, whatever you want to call it. So that's top thing. And then good backpack. If you're going to be, backcountry hunting or whatever it is, you need a good pack. Spend good money on a pack. That's, unfortunately, you do get what you pay for when it comes to backpacks. My background's backpacking, so like that's probably, I should have said that. That's probably a given. Like get a good pack.
What are you looking for in a pack when you're picking out a pack, and what should people be looking for?
If you're going for bigger game and you're not going to use it as a primary, like just recreational backpacking pack, get something with a meat shelf. They don't have to be the latest Kifaru model, but the Spica and Hunter's Element have meat shelf packs at a more reasonable price. But if your goal is a multi-purpose backpack, I like a large internal, like, open space. I don't like lots of zippers and little pockets and stuff. I like a good big inside. I like a lid or a brain that can be removed. I've got some good packs as well, but you get some packs that have that removable, and then it can clip onto a waist belt or has an internal waist belt. So you have a go bag, and make sure you can reach the pockets on the side. If you're using them for water bottles or optics or whatever, make sure you can actually reach them. Some of them are poorly designed and you can't actually reach those water bottle pockets. And I'm a big fan of large hip belt pockets for snacks, knives, compass. So I like the space inside. I don't like a lot of bells and whistles. I like a streamlined pack. If it's not hunting, the Osprey Ether Pro is my guiding pack. Basically no external pockets, very streamlined, but you can take off the hip belt, you can take off the side pockets, you can take off the brain and strip it down as much as you want. Something like that is super versatile. It just doesn't come in camo. But yeah, versatility, durability in a pack, simple, bells and whistles are not needed. Footwear. You got to have something that you're super comfortable in. I am rocking a pair of Lems Summit Boulder boots these days for basically everything. Super wide, neutral toe box, all full grain leather upper, waterproof membrane, like gnarly treads, but whatever you choose, you need to be able to live in them. Like, boots are expensive. but you could honestly pay more for boots and get more out of them than you would a bow. You know, like just because you're gonna shoot an arrow once on a trip.
That's it.
Or maybe a couple times a trip or once at an animal, but you're gonna be in those boots and wearing that pack every day. So that's where I think more money and time and thought should be spent. Get a complete bow set up, get something affordable. If it shoots an arrow straight, you're fine. It doesn't need anything fancy. But the pack, the footwear, the socks, like that shit is game changing. That's my fourth item, socks. Real good socks. Honest to God, you get a blister out on the trail, you're just going to be suffering.
So are you chasing like a merino wool sock, synthetic, bamboo? What's your go-to?
Definitely some sort of wool blend. Wool is on its own not super durable, but it's really good at managing bacterial growth. You don't want your feet stinking and everything smelling you across the mountains, but also for your foot health. Wool is also good at moisture managing, whereas synthetics are actually really good at moisture management as well, but they stink. So usually you want to blend because synthetics are usually more durable. Wool is better for hygiene. Get a nice blend. Darn Tough socks are my absolute favorite. I would only wear and buy Darn Tough socks if they actually sold them in Australia. I have to get them when I go overseas or order them, and then they're like $40 a pair. But good quality wool blend socks. And I mean, there's just so much. I do a gear chat with a trekking company every fortnight.
Awesome.
And so like I talk about backpacking gear and like layering systems and technology a lot. And so there's a lot you can go into if you really want to nerd out on that side of stuff.
Is that a podcast or what's that on?
The way I do that. So I do that as a fortnightly call for a trekking training company.
Okay.
So I work with their clients directly for that one. I do have some actually I have a bunch of resources on my YouTube channel about gear selection for backpacking, layering systems, backpacks, blister prevention, footwear. So I've got some videos that are already there, and I've got some that I'm releasing, like 30-minute talks on each individual thing, because I can really nerd out on that. But socks are very close to my heart. So get good socks, get good boots or footwear of your choice, backpack, a fully set up shooting kit, whatever you want to do. And if there's like an item, I'd say for the fifth spot, it'd be something around navigation, whether it's making sure you have like a good map, like a topographical detailed map, physical map, or whether you use something like All Trails and you have digital maps, or offline digital navigation systems, whatever it is, like have a good navigation system and understanding of it. And like I'm not great with using a compass and map system, but I'm pretty good at basically never getting lost because I know where I came from and I understand the landscape. Like I've never gotten lost in hilly regions. In Tasmania, it's like there's a mountain, okay, you know where you are.
That's it.
But you have to know the landscape. And so whether it's a physical map, I love physical maps. I take them on trails all the time. Or if it's digital, but like have some sort of good navigation system and know how to use it. Because if you're going backcountry's big. You need to know how to get out.
Yeah, you said something there that relates to me. Map and compass. I've never used them. Like, it's not something like, I know which direction I came from. I know,
Yeah.
you're taking in land features and stuff like that. But I've also got mates that can't find their way, they'd get lost in a shopping center because they wouldn't know where they came in. Like,
I forget that some people aren't good at that, because I've got all these books on my bookshelf here that's like how to read a map and compass and how to navigate with the landscape and stuff. And I never make it through them because I just don't have any application. Like I've got friends who do like orienteering and roganing, where you're trying to navigate courses or, find cache points using just a map and compass and coordinates. But it's like, I don't do that. I wander and I go, that thing over there, I'm going to walk to that. Okay, I'll walk to that. Well, that's where I came from. So that's how I get back, kind of thing. I don't do the orienteering type of stuff. So I don't typically, I've never really had a use for map and compass. And then if I've needed something more detailed, unfortunately, I'm a modern individual. I use technology. I can put that stuff offline. I can use GPS. I carry battery packs. Like, why not?
I'm the same. I run on X Maps. So, I used it for Snake Island this year. I use it on my normal properties. If I find fresh rubs or trails, I mark all them out. Property boundaries. If I find a singular shed, I'll map out the shed, like mark where that was, and then use the map to do rings around it and do like a grid to see if I can find the other one. Mark trail cameras. In Snake Island was awesome because I was able, the pre-night of the scout that we did, I went through and, as everyone on the island discussed where they were going hunting, I kind of pinned it out for everyone. So when I got back to camp the next morning before they went off, I'm like, this is where you want to go. This is, where it is. Marked it all out, showed them, sent them screenshots of where they need to go. And it worked a charm. Same with New Zealand. I found out the area that we're going, marked out a few huts and then our camps and our car, and just ran off of that.
Yeah.
Like, it was amazing.
Yeah, it works really well. Like, you don't necessarily need map and compass skills. They're useful in a lot of situations, and if you choose to use them, but as long as you have a system,
that's it.
You just need a system. You need to be familiar with it, and as long as you have that, you're going to be fine, because that also then is building into your woodsman skills, how to just, like, if I'm not spending any, like, I haven't been out in the bush proper for a while because I've been focusing on this archery tournament I had last month. And like, even just your ability to walk and navigate through the bush deteriorates if you don't do it.
That's it.
You have to not just be able to navigate and walk and deal with obstacles and stuff, but then I have to learn how to do that mindfully and quietly and observantly. That's a whole other thing. And so that kind of feeds off of your ability to first understand how to get around the landscape.
Yeah, 100%. Moving on to the next question. Silly one. I'm a bit of a zombie nerd, as listeners would know.
Nice.
What's your zombie apocalypse weapon?
Oh, what kind of zombies? Are they fast ones, slow ones?
I reckon
rotting?
Just Walking Dead style. You don't want to go 28 day later.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Or
like
Z-Day zombies, but
yeah,
Walking Dead style.
Pig spear.
Yep.
Pig spear, or like a halberd, long handle with some sort of blade or chopping thing. Halberd would be cool because it's got like the axe head and then the hook for grabbing and pulling. But like boar spear would be handy because the blade used at the end has the crossbar to stop it from penetrating too deep, so you can't lose the weapon into the first zombie you stab. You have the ability to then take it out and continue. So something with a bit of reach, but more of a melee style thing. I think that would work well. Alternatively, I'd probably go something like a war hammer or war club, something, again, melee style, a little bit more reach. Doesn't necessarily have to be a blade, because all we have to do is kill the brain. And so stabbing through a skull has its disadvantages, and keeping the blade sharp is not necessarily always going to be easy, but you can just bash them in the head with a bit of leverage. That should work fine too.
Perfect. Great answers. I like your thinking, and I can tell that you've thought a lot about this.
Just off the top of my head, I've never thought that at all.
It comes across that way. But yeah, two very interesting answers, and ones that I haven't thought of. But I like your thinking.
Just because, like, projectiles are going to be limited. Like you can only make bullets for so long. Arrows as well. Like, God, how many people know how to actually make an adequately spined arrow from scratch? Like, if we're using modern bow materials, like, you're not going to be able to take a piece of fucking pine or cedar and like make a 400 spine arrow for my 50-pound recurve, or
That's it.
300 spine for my 70-pound compound. Like, you won't be able to shoot them anymore.
That's it. Speaking of shooting, top 5 dream animals. What would they be? If money's not an issue anywhere in the world, any game, what would they be?
Oh, I mean, moose. I want to bow hunt a moose. Some sort of really big goat. I want to be up in some rocky shit, like going after some big mountain goat.
Tahr. You have to go chase tahr.
Tahr. I mean, they look so cool. That would be awesome. But there's some like big Middle Eastern or like Central Asian goats too. I've seen some people take up the mountains. I don't know what kind they are, but they're just cool. And goat's delicious. So it'll be that goat. I want to hunt a camel. Yeah. I want to bow hunt a camel. I hate the heat.
Have you
I think the desert is nope.
Oh, it's amazing. It's so good.
See, this thing is like, I think Donnie Vincent said it best, is like, there's no such thing as bad animal. You're just a bad cook. Like, some of those guys going after carnivore species like cougar, and they're like, oh, delicious. And other people are like, worst thing I've ever eaten. My firearms instructor, the guy who was doing the safety course here in Tassie, I was asked about Cape Barren goose, because there's now an open season on the geese because the population's back. And he basically said you might as well just eat a rock. But I'm like, it doesn't make any sense. I'm sure they're delicious. You just got to cook them good. So what do we got? I've got moose, goat, camel. I actually really want to hunt bear. I've got some friends who bow hunt black bear. I would like to do that. They're supposed to be delicious, and very populous up in many parts of the world. Great terrain and an area to hunt, and also terrifying because it is a bear. And if you make a mistake, actually, I mean, moose would just pulverize you as well. But bears, the terrain, you have to be pretty close. There's some risk there, and then delicious, and then if you do well, you can get a bear skin rug out of it.
That's it. Yeah, bear's an absolute dream of mine. I've mentioned it 1,000 times on the podcast, but Clay Newcomb's got a episode, like a YouTube video, where he's up chasing him, and the bear comes in and sniffs the end of his arrow before he shoots it. He's in a makeshift ground blind, shooting over a baited barrel, and the bear comes up, and he's from me to my computer screen away, and the bear just sniffs the end of his arrow, and as the bear's walking off, he sinks an arrow into it with his trad gear, and it's such a wicked video. If you haven't seen it, definitely watch it.
I'll have to check that out. I've had some close encounters with bears on trails up in Canada. It's just a different thing with hunting, because in that range, like, a lot of times they don't perceive you as a threat, but if you injure them and don't take a good shot and don't have good placement, and you're that close to a bear, like, an injured bear is not your friend.
No, that's an insane video. It's one of my favorite. I've watched it on repeat, and my 3.5-year-old Ollie, he sits down and watches it with me, and he's probably watched it 50 times.
Oh. Yeah, that's wild. How many animals did I get? That was 4?
Yeah, I believe that was 4.
Okay. Do I have to do 5?
Yeah, go. Come on.
Okay. God, I'm thinking bow hunting. There's like animals I just want to take anyway, because goat, pig, that kind of thing, deer. But like, if I was to go off for anything crazy, I don't really have any attraction to Africa.
Yeah,
I know that's one of those big places. I'm like, yeah, I'd go there if the opportunity presented, but I just don't like, I want to go to Africa and hunt crazy African animals. like a big Florida gator would be cool. That would be just also terrifying, like going through the swamps trying to find a gator. Again, also supposed to be delicious. Got some friends down in Florida, and they're like, "Oh yeah, gator's good."
Have you
But the
spoken?
idea of hunting one,
Yeah. Have you spoken
be
to
wild.
Caleb's partner Kai? She's
Yeah,
taken a gator with trad gear
has she?
in Florida, I believe. And yeah, it's so cool.
That's a dinosaur, man. Those
Yeah.
things are just monsters.
Oh, I wish crocs were open up here. I'd bow hunt a croc if it was legal.
God, salty.
Oh, for sure. It would-
Oh, God, could you imagine? Oh, why can't we hunt them? How many are there? Are there heaps?
the numbers are more than they can handle at the moment, I believe. But depends who
Oh
you
man,
chat
as soon
to.
as they start trying to cull them, we need to be getting on a petition for that.
Yeah, it'd be
Actually, that's actually kind of like the bow fishing thing. I just don't understand why you can't bow fish in so many places in Australia. Like the ability to do that alone is phenomenal. Like you're not going to just take all the fish. That's another thing I think should really be opened up here besides just for carp. I know you could do it in New South Wales for carp.
South Australia. We
But
can bow fish for carp. That's one of my main summer activities. Is a lot
cool.
of bow fishing for carp. What about Tassie? Is it same as spearfishing rules or just non-existent at all?
No, it's non-existent. It's
Smart.
non-existent. Spearfishing is pretty cool. See, I used to do a lot of spearfishing up in Victoria too. I've done none of that here. But like saltwater fishing here is awesome because you can just do
That
it.
It is. It's
You don't need a permit. You don't need a license. It's just go fishing.
yeah. Yeah, it's the same here in South Australia. No fishing permit unless you're fishing stocked reservoirs, which is great for getting
Yeah.
people in. But yeah, it's also got no money going back into the fishery either. Where Victoria has a fair bit of money going back into the fishery and boat
Yeah.
ramp maintenance and artificial reefs and
And
stocking.
you need that.
Yeah, 100%, you do.
Saltwater is pretty open here, but freshwater, because like we're one of the big trout capitals, that I think brings in a lot more, and it is much more regulated. I haven't bothered with freshwater because I can't. I don't have any fishing gear anymore. But I just keep thinking like having to look up each waterway before I know what I can take and where. I'm just like,
Sounds complicated.
I'll eat rabbit.
Speaking of eating rabbit, what is your favorite thing to cook? I know you covered a bunch of different recipes before, but what would be your favorite thing to cook with
Potted rabbit.
potted rabbit?
Yeah, potted rabbit is just awesome. It's pork belly and slow cooked rabbit, juniper berry, thyme, like just a bunch of salt and herbs and mustard, and then you just make like a terrine out of it. Throw it on some toast. It's one of my favorite breakfasts. I have a bunch in my freezer right now. I just took my last 3 rabbits out of the freezer and turned them into potted rabbit, and it's just
Beautiful.
delicious and wholesome, fun for the whole family. Makes good gift.
I'm going to have to look into next time I get some rabbits if I can find some. So, jumping back on public perception, how do you see the public views on hunting? Especially, you've said bow hunting is frowned upon in Tassie. How do you just see common hunting down there?
I don't think it's understood. I think, like I said, I remember driving. I think we're going hiking, a friend and I, and he said something about light bars on cars. Those light bars in the front. And he's like, "Oh, light bars just make me. I don't like them. Like that's why I think I said, yeah, you should get a light bar in your car because we're going out like before dawn, some backcountry hike. And I'm like, hey, you should get those light bars. And he's like, they just make me think of hunters. I'm like, what does that mean? And he's like, yeah, they go out and shine their lights on all the wallabies or whatever and shoot them all. And I'm like, that's what people think of hunting here. Like that's what they do. That's the only perception they have. And then I'm like, no, hunting's way cooler. Like that's a perfectly acceptable way to protect crops and produce meat. Like it's efficient. It's effective. It's pretty hard to take a bad shot. Like, that's fine. But like when I think hunting, it's backcountry stuff. It's, being out on the land, or, tracking animals and working on your woodsman skills, and like all that's part of it. All that's part of the experience. But most people, they don't have any idea that exists. And it weirds me out. And there's just so many similar. I mean, you get a lot of similar perceptions just around firearms in general. I was telling my barber, I was like, yeah, because he's a friend of mine, and I was like, oh, I'm finally getting my firearms sorted. He's like, oh, is it because you're American? I'm like, it's because I want to. It's because I want to fill my freezer with deer meat, and it's the only way I'm allowed to do it. And he's like, what did he say? Something like, oh, hunting, I'm not into hunting. And then I had to have this same talk. And I'm like, this is what hunting is to me. And he's like, oh, well, that doesn't sound so bad. I'm like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, but next thing you know, you're going to want to be storing your firearms in the house. I'm like, where else are you supposed to store them? He's like, in your shed. And I'm like, do you want me to get robbed? Like, what? It's like bad perception after bad perception. And I was like, this is normal. Like what I envision hunting and how I understand firearms and procuring food and having food security for you and your family. Like that's such a big, important thing to me. And so many people just have no concept of that or how it actually works. It still astounds me that there are people, mostly on the internet, that don't understand where food comes from. And this is a big platform for the Shooters, Fishers, Farmers political party. I've chatted with them a lot over the last couple of years about hunting and bow hunting and things like that. And one thing they push for is like where your food comes from, education programs in schools, taking kids to farms, showing them how food is actually produced, because it's shocking to me that people have no understanding about, first of all, where it comes from now, how food is produced, and then where we came from as a species and how we are where we are today. It's because we had to find our own food. And the people who connect with that part of our primal existence tend to be a little better adapted to life.
Yeah, 100%. I would love to see like depression rates for people that go hunting and fishing versus depression rates in people that just don't leave the city, and like it would be a cool study to see.
Oh, there'd be so many layers to that, because there'd be the lifestyle factor, there'd be the nutrition factor, there'd be exposure to sunlight and nature. Something I talked about on my podcast a little while back too was, the just exposure to nature and nature simulated environments and the benefit and health effects of that is just wild. Like you could literally look at pictures of trees and listen to nature sounds and be healthier than if you didn't.
Yeah, well, it's just the connect that you have when you're out there. But how would you change the public views on hunting and hunters? What would you, if you could do something, what would you do personally to...
I would make every kid watch all of Donnie Vincent's movies.
Yep. That would
do
start.
it. Like if you ever want to show someone like what the spirit of hunting is, Donnie Vincent stuff. He tells stories like no one else, and then just the experience of joining him in Alaska and wherever else, like backcountry, understanding land, connecting with the animals, the preparation, the mindset, the experience, the food that you create from the experience, the way it affects the ecosystem. Like that's, everybody needs to experience that. Watch those movies when you're young and in your formative years, so you sort of really understand it.
Do you feel Meat Eater's a good version of that as well? It's more accessible than Donnie Vincent.
Yeah, I mean, Meat Eater, Steven Rinella, all his stuff is awesome. Actually, one of my favorite books ever is American Buffalo by Steven Rinella. And if you haven't read that, go out and read that. I like everything Meat Eater does, but I think it speaks more to people who are already on that path. Donnie Vincent's more poetic. Yeah. It's a much more about the visual experience Remediator is much more practical. I think it already speaks to hunters. I think even just the title, Meat Eater, is already saying vegans go fuck yourself, which is fine by me. But if we want to try and change minds, I think the storytelling and the understanding of the natural picture and the ecosystem around it is incredibly valuable for helping people understand the full picture, because it's more than just food in that case.
100%.
But Meat Eater is a phenomenal project, and all of its offshoots are, and all the podcasts, the hunting podcasts from all the guys who kind of came out of that have been an amazing resource for me.
Yeah, 100%. I can see why that would help people getting into hunting for sure. At the end of it, what is hunting to you?
To me, hunting falls under the category of personal sovereignty, having control and having a say in how you live and having a hand in your ability to actually survive. You are not relying on anyone else. It's your skills and your ability to produce the most nutritious food you can eat for you, your family, and your community. It falls under the category of food security for me as well. If you don't have the ability, whether the legal ability or the personal ability, to produce the basics of living, what are you doing? You have no security in your life. You are going to have to rely on someone else to take care of you at the end of the day. And this is a bit of maybe the zombie mindset or the prepper mindset or whatever it is, but we can't rely on the systems forever. Like there will come a time where maybe it's not our generation, but there will come a time when those systems fail, maybe not across all of society, but in sections, and you have to be able to support your people. And only if you understand and embody those skills can you pass them on to when they're going to be used as well. So it's all that food security and personal sovereignty, being the master of your own life.
That's a great answer. It's certainly a little bit different to the usual answer. Normally it's people going, being out in nature and the food and that. But the way you've put it is a brilliant way of putting it, and it's give me ways to put it out there myself in a different way to that usual way. So no, really appreciate you coming on, man. It's been a blast. No, and I know it's been in the make for a while now to have this podcast sorted, but it's just one of those things. We all get busy, and I'm glad you're free tonight to be able to do it. Give us a rundown on your business and where people can find it. What type of thing do you do? And
so I founded a business called Strong for Life Online Coaching. I mean, the name is what we do. We help people get strong for life. And I work with folks in the military and mountain climbers and stay-at-home moms and backpackers and combat athletes, everything in between. It's just about, figuring out what being strong for life means for you and getting you there. And it's run by myself and a couple other coaches that I have. We have different backgrounds and expertise, and just make sure that wherever you want to get to in life, that's where we're going to get you. And if you want to find me and what I do, Instagram's easiest, at Coach Josh Wood. You can also find the Strong for Life page, Strong for Life Online Coaching, or just Google me. I show up on most platforms. If you want some resources, my YouTube page, YouTube/Coach Josh Wood, has a bunch of backpacking resources. So if you want to dig into footwear selection and blister prevention and choosing a backpack, there's a bunch of stuff there.
Yeah, beautiful. I'll chuck all those links that I can in the show notes so people can find that, and hopefully you get a few messages about it, and people, because it's something that everyone wants to everyone wants to get a bit more hunt fit. So
Yeah, it makes life easier.
100%. But yeah, again, thank you for coming on and joining us for 2 hours, and it's been a great conversation. And
man, time flies.
Oh, it does. It's crazy when you podcast and it just straight out the window.
Yeah.
But
awesome.
Easy, man. Thank you very much, and yeah, it's been great.
Have a good one.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of Hunting Connection Podcast. We hope you've enjoyed our discussions and gained valuable insights into the world of hunting, fishing, and the outdoors. To stay connected with us and never miss out on an update, please be sure to follow us on social media, all at Hunting Connection Podcast. We appreciate your support and would love for you to share the podcast with your friends and family. Don't forget to tag us in your hunting photos on social media and let us know about your experiences. Your feedback is invaluable to us, so please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. Together, we continue growing and delivering more captivating episodes for all hunting enthusiasts. Stay connected, stay informed, and keep pursuing your passion for the hunt. Until next time, happy hunting.